So today we're going to talk about user engagement and how Amazon Music leverages Amazon Pinpoint to drive growth for its service. So as I mentioned, as folks were filing in, we're going to send a push notification campaign this evening with a special prize in it. So if you'd like to receive that and actually see a little bit more about what we are talking about today, please go ahead and do these 2 steps. And we'll put this back up later in the presentation, so if you don't have time at this moment, we'll show it to you later. So just to kind of jump into who we are. So first, my name is Zach Barbetta. I'm a Senior Product Manager with Amazon Pinpoint. I'm joined by my colleagues from Amazon Music. We have Johnson Chang, Senior Manager, and Aaron DeRosiers, Senior Developer. So just to set the groundwork on what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to do a little bit of a different approach to some of these sessions. We're going to spend just about 6 minutes talking at a high level. So how does AWS think about user engagement? Let's spend just about 1 minute on that. And then we're going to give a brief introduction to Amazon Pinpoint and Amazon Music before we go into this user engagement demo. And we're going to walk through how Amazon Music would send a campaign to the audience, because that's eventually what we're going to do, as mentioned later today. From there, we're going to dive a little deeper. We're going to look to see how Amazon Music has architected their backend to work with Amazon Pinpoint. They're going to talk a little bit about some of the war stories that they had over the year with us, some of the wins, some of the things that we both learned along the way, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers at the end. So first, how does AWS think about user engagement? So as you're all well aware, AWS is many services, and when it comes to user engagement, we all really have the same goal in terms of empowering you, our customers, to have the right conversation with your end users. And when we say right conversation, it's not just about sending a message that has relevant content. It's about sending a message that they really value over the right channel. Maybe email is not the best, or maybe it is. Maybe SMS or push is preferred. But sending it over the right channel. And then, of course, you want to send it to the right audience. You want to segment your users, your app users, into like-minded cohorts so that your message is the most relevant to them. And then finally, you want to send it at the right time. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who has received a notification at an inconvenient time, and you get it, and you say, this might be the best message in the world, but it's in the middle of the day, and I'm walking to a meeting, so I'm not going to engage with it. Or it's sent at 2 a.m., and I wake up in the morning, and I have that message with 10 others, so I don't really engage with it. So time is a big component of effective user engagement. So an introduction to Amazon Pinpoint. So Amazon Pinpoint's a relatively new service. It was launched last year at reInvent, and there's really 3 core buckets of Amazon Pinpoint. And first is user analytics. So we start there because everything we do is driven off the analytics. And why? And I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you all are well aware, but the analytics are our customers talking to us. So maybe they're not talking to us directly, but indirectly through their actions. So if they're clicking on a message, if they're engaging with it, if they're forwarding an email, if they're excited about the content you're providing them, that's them communicating that to you. So analytics are really important, and we have really 2 kind of parts of the analytics: the messaging analytics, and then the user analytics. What are they doing within your application? Where are they getting stuck? What are they clicking on? How much time are they spending? So that's really important, because that really drives the second part, which is targeting. So Pinpoint enables you to leverage the analytics that you just captured, and then create targeting, segmentation and targeting. And this is important because this goes back to the first slide. And I'll reference the first slide throughout the presentation because it's important. So this enables you to create many segments that are going to be relevant for the messaging that you're sending them. And then the third part of Amazon Pinpoint is messaging. And again, that goes back to sending the message over the right channel. So we support SMS, push, and email. And yesterday, we launched Pinpoint Extensions, which enables you to call a Lambda function from Pinpoint so that you can enable other use cases. So those are the 3 real pillars of Amazon Pinpoint. I'm going to turn it over to Johnson, who's going to talk a little bit about Amazon Music, and then we're going to go into what a demo would look like.
Thank you, Zach. So hi, everyone. My name is Johnson. I lead engineering for growth for Amazon Music. We're a team based in San Francisco. We have some satellite teams in Seattle as well. So before I jump in to describe to you what Amazon Music is, I wanted to ask you guys first a few questions. So How many of you guys, by the show of hands, are actually Prime subscribers? Oh, wow. Cool. All right. So next question. How many of you guys, before you came to reInvent, knew that Amazon even has a music service? Oh, that's pretty good. Well, yeah, obviously.
You guys are doing a good job.
Yeah. And then third question, I guess the most important one. How many of you guys are actually Amazon Music users, whether it's Prime Music or Music Unlimited? OK, that's pretty good. OK, so what did I just do with these questions? Does anyone know? Yes, exactly. So I actually just segmented you guys, right? So I put you guys into buckets, which gives me insights about who you guys are as customers and also your relationship with our product. So that's really useful because if we want to engage you, we want to know what's the right way to engage you that's the most effective. So those of you that didn't raise your hand at all during those questions, you might be wondering, like, why is Amazon in the music business? Like, what's the deal with that? We're at reInvent. Amazon's about shopping and cloud computing, right? So as a matter of fact, Amazon has been in the music business since the 90s. So in 1998, music, CDs, and albums was actually the second things that Amazon.com, the website, sold right after books. So it's actually been a continuous journey from selling CDs and vinyls to 2007 when we launched the MP3 download store and the cloud music account where you can upload your music so that you can listen everywhere, to 2014 when we launched Prime Music first, which is part of your Prime benefit, as most of you guys know, I guess. And last year we launched Music Unlimited, which is all you can listen, full catalog service, which you pay a monthly fee or a yearly fee for. So we're super excited about these services. We're growing really fast. Two key differentiators that we think are about our service. Number one is we're not dedicated to a particular platform in terms of mobile ecosystem. So we really strive to be on every single platforms to have the best experience. And then the other thing is that we happen to be one of the major use case on this little device called the Echo. So how many of you guys actually own an Echo? Oh, wow, OK. So we think that's actually a unique thing, right? Because the living room is kind of uncharted territory for music. And so our organization really think about voice as one of the key ways that people will use to discover music, get new recommendations, and a new way for people to interact with music. So we really think about features in a voice-forward way. So that kind of sets the background about what Amazon Music is. So I'm going to pass it back to Zach and Aaron to talk about how we actually use Pinpoint.
Yeah, great. So as mentioned, I think a few folks have come in since we started. This evening, we're going to send a push notification campaign to everyone and provide 3 months of Amazon Music Unlimited for free to try. And right now, Aaron and I are going to walk through what that would look like. How would we segment the room into the audience that clicked on this deep link? How would we attach the custom attribute to the endpoint? And so how would we actually enable that? So just walking through this. So behind me is a screenshot of the Amazon Pinpoint console. And it's some sample data that we have that really shows analytics. And we're starting with analytics, if you recall, from a couple slides ago, because that's really the starting point for effective user engagement. You have to know what your users are telling you. So on the top left, you can see active targetable endpoints. Top right, overview of your campaigns. How are they performing? On the bottom, it's all about your app. It's your daily active users, monthly active users. New endpoints, sessions, 7-day retention rate. So it really gives you the key metrics that you want to look at every day for your application. So in this scenario, we actually want to create a segment. So in this hypothetical situation, the whole room is our app audience. And we want to just drill down into the very unique users that decided to participate in this demo. So that's the folks that downloaded the app and went to the deep link. So it's pretty easy to do. So again, this is all the Amazon Pinpoint console. And this is what Amazon Music uses to drive their user engagement. So we're going to build a segment. So on the top left, you can see that. And we're going to name the segment, so MBL303 attendees. And we're going to build a segment. Important to note, here's where you can actually import segments that you might have elsewhere. So it's really easy for you to bring in different segments from different tools or different legacy systems that you might want to engage with. But for our demo purposes, we want to build a unique demo. And we want to engage over mobile push. And we're going to engage over mobile push because everyone has downloaded the app. and it's an effective channel to engage. But I'm actually going to let Aaron talk a little bit about how Amazon Music thinks about the different channels and why they decided to use Amazon or mobile push instead of email or SMS.
Thanks, Zach. So Amazon does leverage, or Amazon Music does leverage multiple channels to reach our customers. So we're using both mobile push through Android and iOS, as well as email. But we really view mobile push as the more powerful channel to use, and the reason is that it's much more direct and real time. Obviously, with email, you'd have to go and look at your email and kind of filter through all the other emails you have to find what we're trying to send to you. But with mobile push, it's right on your device right away, and so that's very powerful for us. It's been a way that we can really drive engagement much more quickly than through email.
Great. Okay, so next, now that we've named the segment, we want to build it and we define the channel, now we need to filter. We need to target against that segment. So there's really 4 great ways to do that and very easy ways to do that in the Pinpoint console. So first, app usage criteria. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and this is really powerful for re-engagement use cases. So has my user used the app over the X amount of time? So this enables you to quickly segment your app users to re-engage them if they haven't been active. The next is standard attributes, and this is pretty self-explanatory. This is information about each endpoint. So the app version, the country, the make, model. And this could be important if you want to send a message to a specific device or specific app version. What we're going to talk about today and what we're doing later this evening when we send you the push notification is we're actually creating a custom attribute. And what that custom attribute does is it attaches to your endpoint, and the endpoint being your mobile device. It attaches something that's unique that we're looking for. So in this case, when you clicked on the URL, it was a deep link that allowed us to associate your endpoint with this custom attribute. So when we go through the console this evening, we're going to filter for this reference marker, and then it's going to pull in everyone that went to that URL. So now we'll have our segment of users that wanted to be engaged with. And last but not least, we'll talk about user attributes and how you can filter on that. So user attribute, first a user is a parent to all the endpoint IDs. So many folks have multiple devices, iPads, Android, iPhone. Those are all endpoints, and they map to users. So users are the parent. So for example, a user attribute might be your favorite team, because you have one favorite team and it's indifferent to the device that you're on. Okay, great. So now we've created a segment. We have everyone in the audience that clicked on the deep link, and we want to actually create a campaign. So this is pretty straightforward. So we're going to create a campaign. We're going to name the campaign, reinvent Amazon Music Push. We're going to engage over push, and we're going to do a standard campaign. But it's important to really talk about A/B testing, and that's because it's often talked about, but it's seldomly done well. And everyone understands the value of A/B testing, but to empower your teams to do it easily on their own, that's what we strive to do here. And we want to provide tools for your marketing team, your growth team, your engineering teams to do things on their own. So this A/B testing is really beneficial when you're trying to determine the best message or the best time to send a message, so that when you have the larger campaign, you can easily say, I have the data to back up that this is the best verbiage, or this is the best time of day. And Amazon Music uses this quite a bit, and I think they have a really interesting story. I think it was about the robot engagement. I'll let Aaron share that.
Right. Yeah, just to talk a little bit about how we leverage the standard campaigns and the A/B testing campaigns. So an example of like a standard campaign could potentially be something like, oh, we know that you like this artist, and they just released something new. So one thing that we could do would be to send you a notification when something new gets released. But for A/B testing, what's very powerful is that we can really tweak the message and see like how it's performing. So one story about a success we had there is we had a recommendation for a station. So we said, oh, we know that these people like this station. So the control, I guess, or the treatment one would be essentially just like a generic message that said, hey, we found this station for you. And then the second message that we sent said something like, our robots crunched the numbers and they came up with this station for you. And it turns out that that second message, it was kind of a little bit more playful, and our customers actually really engaged with that much, much higher. So A/B testing is like really powerful for us to be able to really tweak the message and see what's engaging to the customer.
Yeah, and so that kind of goes back to the earlier point about analytics driving all the decisions we make, and what Pinpoint strives to do is provide those tools and that data. Because the intent of that message was, the intent of both messages was the same. It was just the way they were structured, and it had a material difference on your campaign. So your user engagement should be just that, should be engaging. And so great, so now we're gonna create a campaign, and we need to go into the messaging. So straightforward, I will call out, we have standard notifications and silent notifications. In this case, we're gonna use a standard notification. We want the notification to be surfaced. We want you to see it. You do have the ability to send silent notifications, so if your app needs to receive data without the user being alerted, that's certainly an option. The title, we're gonna call this Welcome to Amazon Music, so that's what you'll see later this evening. And then the message, so try Amazon Music for 3 months for free by tapping this notification and using the reInvent 2017 promo code. So that's what you'll see, and if you'd like to try Amazon Music, the promo code is reInvent 2017. You'll have it in the message. And then next, we're going to talk about how we're going to direct you to use that promo code, because we want to take as many friction, as much as the clicks out of the process as possible. So I'm going to call attention to the go-to URL, because this is where we're going to send you if you click on the push notification, if you engage with it. And this brings you to the sign-up page, and then allows you to sign up using the promo code, and just makes it one less step that you have to do to try the demo. Great, so next is scheduling. So this goes back to the first slide when we talked about time. So it's really important that when you think about user engagement, you think about what time you're going to send this message. So I've highlighted what I think is one of the most useful parts of the campaign workflow, which is users' local time. So if you have a recurring campaign at 8 a.m. Eastern time, you want to make sure this box is checked. Otherwise, it's showing up at 5 a.m. Pacific time. And so it's those little things that are often overlooked, but make all the difference in a message. You know, it goes back to receiving an alert in the middle of the night. You're not going to engage with it. You're sleeping. Also, quiet time start, quiet time end. Just being able to bracket timeframes where you don't want notifications to go through. And this is important. This is important for customers that have global customer bases, and also important for customers that want to have consistent messaging across the day. And I know Amazon Music uses this for some of the use cases as well.
Right, so yeah, this is a really important feature for us. So Amazon Music is available in multiple countries across the globe. So it's very important that we can actually send in the user's local time zone. We want to be very cognizant of not spamming the user during times that are inconvenient for them. So I think I mentioned previously, we view push as very powerful, and it's very direct and real time, but along with that comes the responsibility of making sure that you're not like over messaging your customers or annoying them. So, for example, I love heavy metal music, but that doesn't mean I want to get a recommendation at 1 a.m. to listen to Rage Against the Machine. It's probably not the right time for me to get that. So, and then the quiet time is also very useful. Just to make sure that we're not sending stuff during times that is going to be annoying for the customer.
Okay. So next is review, and this is the last step before you actually hit the launch button. And we just like to call this out because when you're working in an environment when there might be millions of endpoints or millions of users, you want to make sure that everything's aligned before you go ahead and go. And so in this slide, and this is after you've launched the campaign, I just call out the campaign analytics on the top right. Because this is sort of like the positive feedback loop that we talked about earlier. This is really starting back to the analytics now. So you just say, we've launched a campaign to 10 million users. We need to go back in and start the process over again on really understanding what the campaign did. Was it effective? Did people opt in, use the promo code? Did they find it annoying and delete the app? This data really empowers the next campaign. So each campaign, each engagement, you get a little bit better. Great. So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about who is Amazon Pinpoint built for. So I hope through the screenshots that we showed you, we were able to demonstrate that it's intuitive and user-friendly. So when we built Amazon Pinpoint, a lot of feedback from customers we received was, hey, I need to enable my teams to be effective on their own. I can't field questions as a developer all day. I need to empower my marketers, my growth teams. So intuitive and user-friendly enough. That's one of the things we've heard. But we didn't want to dilute the console down to the point where you didn't have power and control. So that goes to some of the features that we talked about with quiet times, max messages sent per campaign, max messages that a user can receive. We want to provide the marketing teams really the control to make powerful user engagement. And then, of course, reliability at scale. The last thing you want to have to think about is reliability, especially as your app's taking off and you're sending more and more engagement messages. You want to ensure that Pinpoint will scale with you, and we will. And then lastly, everything you saw in the console demo is available through APIs and SDKs. So of course, as any AWS service, it's developer-friendly, and you can use any of those to enable the features that we saw. So now I just want to talk about a little bit about where Amazon Pinpoint's going. And before I can talk about where we're going, I think it's important to talk about a little bit about where we came from. So this will help you understand sort of the pace that we move and how important customer feedback is to dictating our roadmap. So as mentioned, we launched last year, and we were just targeted push notifications. And the feedback we got from customers was great. Push notifications are exciting, but they're one part of the puzzle. We know we need multi-channel messaging, we need email, we need SMS. So 6 months later, we launched support for email and SMS. And no surprise, we talked to customers, and they said sort of the same thing. This is great, but we need even more channels. We want to enable more use cases. How can we contact users on really the channel of our choice? And so yesterday, we launched Pinpoint Extensions. And so Pinpoint Extensions enables you from Pinpoint to call a Lambda function. And the Lambda function can unlock user messaging through various channels, such as a Facebook Messenger. So it's our approach to allowing customers to sort of bring their own channel in terms of engagement. So you can now contact your users through really the channel of preference. And then in the future, so what does 3 to 5 years out look like for Amazon Pinpoint? And I get that question a lot, and I think the way I always answer it is, we want to get to empower our customers to have the segment of one, so that you can really look at your whole audience and know what's the best message to send each individual user. And so I think 3 to 5 years out, it looks something along the lines of incorporating predictive analytics and some machine learning to really have that segment of one, that unique use case where the user is receiving a message that's tailored specifically for them. And so now I just want to leave you on the Pinpoint side with some customer case studies, and I'm going to turn over to Johnson and talk more about Amazon Music. So how some other customers are leveraging AWS for customer engagement. So we have Netflix sending email at scale. Duolingo using app analytics to really build a better app. Jiro using Pinpoint Kinesis to look at real-time information and create actionable insights. And then the Washington Post sending messages, but making sure they're not sending too many messages and making sure they're not sending them in the middle of the night. So that's how some customers are leveraging AWS services to engage their end users. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Johnson, who's going to talk a little bit more about Amazon Music, and then we're going to look into detail on how they've integrated with Amazon Pinpoint.
Sure, thanks, Zach. Yeah, so you guys probably want to hear some war stories of, what went well and what went horribly wrong in our integration. But before I get into that and also go into our architecture a little bit, I just want to give you a little bit more context about what's the team that I work in and why Pinpoint makes sense for us. And hopefully that can kind of help you guys. So as I said earlier, I lead growth for music. So the way Amazon Music thinks about growth really is simple. It's really our top priority, right? Growing is number one thing every single year for us. So the way we tackle that is we have 2 dedicated small teams focusing on the area of user acquisition, which is bringing new users, as well as engagement, which is getting existing users to use more, listen to more music, try out all the different features, go out and recommend to their friends and family about how great the service is. So we have these 2 teams, and we have kind of 3 top-level tenets that kind of governs how we execute on growth. Number one is that we try to move really fast, and the reason for that, there's multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is because a lot of times what you try to do for growth, you have no idea whether it's going to succeed or not. It's very experimental in nature. So doing things really fast allows you to fail fast, right? And that kind of brings me to the way that we prioritize. So in Amazon Music, the way we prioritize all growth-related stuff is we have a single unified backlog. Instead of thinking about really long-term roadmaps, we try to prioritize our backlog continuously based on the return of investment. And the reason, again, is because we want to fail fast, we want to experiment, we want to try different things. And once we try different things, we can understand our user better, and then we can find that growth vector, right? And then last bit, we are trying to be really data-driven, so we try not to do anything without having insights into what we do. So that, that information both informs our experimentation, which I talked about earlier, but also about customer insight, understanding our customer better, so that we can do the right things to engage our customer. So these three tenets really kind of help us decide when we wanted to. We knew that we had needs for push notification. We knew that conversion for push is high, but we didn't really, because we want to move fast, we didn't really want to go and build our own infrastructure, for targeting and segmenting and campaign management using like really raw primitives. So at that moment, I think Pinpoint was just starting, so because it just got announced at re:Invent last year, and so we looked at it and we said, okay, well, it's not perfect, it's missing a bunch of features, but we think it's got the values that that we're looking for, and we can. And the great thing is that because it's the AWS service, we can partner with them, and then we can grow together, right? So we chose to go with them, and I think the analytics focus that Zach mentioned earlier, really also fits into our tenet about being data-driven. So, before we integrated with Pinpoint, for example, we already have a full-fledged proprietary, metric system that we have at Amazon Music. So, because the fact that they engineered it not only for marketing teams to set out campaigns, they also build REST APIs which we can easily integrate, on AWS, whether it's through Lambda or Kinesis. That really helped us to bridge the gap between our existing system and Pinpoint for the purpose of segmentation. Last but not least to mention on this slide, so even though we have these two dedicated growth engineering teams that are pretty full stack, we have a lot of partner teams, right? So marketing team, Amazon Music actually has dedicated marketing teams for outbound messaging, for acquisition and engagement. So we work closely with them, and we really wanted a tool that that's going to enable these marketers that are really not technical at all to be able to go out and create creative campaigns, because without bugging the engineering team all the time, because otherwise we would not be able to do all the other stuff that we want to do, which is product experimentation and funnel analysis and all that stuff. So that also, is one of the key reasons why we chose Pinpoint. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our integration architecture, and then I'm going to pass it to Aaron to talk about more of the implementation details. So here's a very high-level architecture of how we integrate with Pinpoint. So as you can see, Pinpoint is the purple box there, and the blue boxes on the left side are existing building blocks that Amazon Music already had before our integration, right? So we had a lot of services, microservices that are running our backends that owns accounts, catalog, playback, etc. As I mentioned before, we had our own metric system already, and we also have obviously a data warehouse, which is used for analytics, business intelligence, as well as payment reporting, right? Because we got to deal with the music labels. So one key call out on this slide is that you can see that we have two pipelines to leverage the custom attributes. So you have the top pipeline there, which is the live attribute updater. So the way that works is that our system has a live understanding of user states that are changing. So for example, if a user just signed up for Prime, if a user just played a particular station, we have that information. So we can, through SNS topic and Lambda, we can basically plumb that into Pinpoint, through one of the custom attributes REST APIs, and then we can use the marketers can then use the campaign management UI that Zach showed earlier to schedule campaigns based on that. Separately, the bottom flow, before we started using Pinpoint for push notification, we already had actually infrastructure to segment our users for other purposes. So for example, we had emails campaigns, we had sweepstakes, we had other things that for personalization. So we really didn't want to go and reinvent that whole infrastructure again when we integrated with Pinpoint, right? So what we ended up doing was we leveraged the existing ETL jobs that's running on our data warehouse on a periodic basis. And effectively, we dumped it into our, a segment repository that we created on S3. And we created an automation that basically triggers a Lambda whenever the segments get put into the S3 bucket, such that they get ingested and, again, update updates the custom attributes for specific endpoints for all the users that are in those segments. So Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit about how are we going to do the actual send for reInvent audiences?
Sure.
On this?
Thanks, Johnson. Right. So if you guys clicked on that link, you couldn't see it because there's a tiny URL, but what it actually redirects to is a link that has a query parameter where it basically uniquely identifies that link. So what happens when you click that is the client device is then going to send an event to our metrics service here, which will get ingested by this insight attributor. And what happens then is you may be wondering why we have this, this mapping table over here. It's because when we initially built this, Pinpoint didn't have the concept of a user, so there was no way for us to map our customer ID to their actual device. So it actually does now. There's this user ID field, but at the time we just wanted to get this up and running, so this is what we built. So what happens is you click the link, we get this event that goes into the attributor. So that essentially has your customer ID along with the link that you clicked on, which we can then map to the endpoint ID, which Pinpoint knows about. And from there, we can then actually update an attribute for your endpoint in Pinpoint. And so that's kind of what Zach was showing you guys in the console. You could see that ref marker there. That was essentially the attribute in Pinpoint. So once we have it in there, we can then use it to target you guys with a message. Yeah, I think that's the basic gist of that.
So I think we're going to pass it to Zach.
Yeah, and just one last slide, and it's just sort of some parting thoughts. It's, be right about the channel, the message, the time, the content that you're sending your users. And Pinpoint enables this holistic view, right? This 360 comprehensive view of your users, whether it's direct messaging, often known as transactional marketing messaging. It all matters, right? It's all a contact point with your customer. And then the second point is two-way conversations are true user engagement. And two-way conversations don't necessarily need to be direct. It could be indirect through the action your users are taking. So start with the analytics. Look at the message analytics. Look at the user analytics. Figure out what they're doing, what they're telling you indirectly, and then create a better story for them. So the two-way conversations are what we really think about user engagement is. It's about the customer providing feedback to the messages that you're sending them. And then last but not least, we'll send a notification tonight, so you'll see an Amazon Music push notification with this promo code and the link to go to sign up if you'd like to try. Additionally, if you want to write it down, it's reInvent 2017. So at this point, we'll open up to any questions, and we appreciate everyone joining us today. Okay. Great. Any questions? Sure.
Yeah, so the question is, we talked about A/B testing. I'm assuming you're asking about Amazon Music, right? Yeah. So no, Amazon Music doesn't use A/B testing functionality in Pinpoint to do functional testing. We do heavily A/B testing in the product, but we have our own infrastructure in Amazon Music that does that. The A/B testing in Pinpoint is basically, specifically around messaging. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can also A/B test the schedule. So if you want to see if sending it at a certain time is better than sending it at another time, that's something I didn't mention before. So you can A/B test both on the schedule and on the actual copy of the text that you're sending.
Right. Yeah.
What is the difference between the use of SES and Pinpoint?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Pinpoint's a relatively new service, and SES has been established. So as you'll see over time, SES, Pinpoint's going to incorporate more of SES features and more of the functionality. And so what's the difference today? The difference today is SES is a more robust transactional platform, and Pinpoint over time will absorb those functionalities and capabilities.
Does it have the same limit on the same recipient list unlimited? So with SES, you can only send an email out to 15 recipients. Does Pinpoint have the same?
So your question is it have the same limits in terms of recipients that it can receive?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have the best answer for you, but I'll follow up afterwards and make sure I can get that for you. Yeah, Henrik?
Yeah, I think that's
There's your answer. Sure. The back left.
Developers on the personal
Sure. So the question was, can you elaborate on the personalization of the messages? And that's a good question because it's really important, right? And personalized messages get us closer to that segment of one, get us closer to the feeling that you're receiving a message that's tailored to you. And so when you're creating a message, there's variables that you can have within the message so that you can pull in the attributes that are specific to the endpoint. So you could have first name, really any attribute you want. You can customize it so that the message is tailored to the specific endpoint that you're sending it to. There's a gentleman right behind you, then I'll come to you.
Yeah, the Amplify was released and it's using Pinpoint as analytics backend, if I'm right. So is the analytics something that is like general purpose, like website analytics and app analytics? So can you use it as like general purpose analytics service?
So if I understand your question correctly, you can use the analytics that are generated from your app that Pinpoint collects and streams out however you'd like. So you can use Pinpoint with Kinesis to S3 Redshift, and then you can use that data stored there to put it on any other analytics platform that you might be interested in. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but the general purpose of the analytics is however you need them.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the Amplify JavaScript like SDK, which was just released, and there is this like analytics, and it's using the Pinpoint as like analytics again. So I'm just kind of wondering if that's something you can use for general like website analytics.
Okay, I'm not sure about the Amplify integration with the Pinpoint Analytics. Yeah. Okay, let me follow up with you as well. Sure, right there.
So do you have like campaign templates or something, which is like industry standard templates you can just use this for those kinds of settings?
So you have to create your own templating within Pinpoint. You can save those templates for future use, but we don't have the full-fledged industry content management templating right now. Yep.
Do you create segmentation based on attributes only, or you are planning support for principal component analysis or some of the kind of segmentation that will uncover some hidden patterns?
Let me try to
Yeah,
answer
sure.
that. So I think in terms of segmentation and really I think you're asking about more intelligent recommendation, right? So at least from Amazon Music's perspective, Pinpoint is the primitive, for us to, it's a capability for us to segment users and have basically a way, a plumbing that allows us to kind of feed user intelligence that we have that's specific to Amazon Music into the segmentation system, such that we can create campaigns and track that. So I think of that these are as two separate problems. So we can keep on making our recommendations smarter or get more information about the user. But as long as we have a pipe, which is the REST APIs and the Kinesis integration, as long as we have these mechanisms, these tools, then we can kind of plumb that into Pinpoint, and Pinpoint will just take advantage of that.
Great. Yeah.
Can you give some actual examples of segments and campaigns that you use in Amazon Music?
I'm not sure if I could. Yeah, so one engagement segment that we're working on right now is what we call the lapsed customer. So for example, we track, if you're a registered user for Prime Music, but you haven't come back, in 7 days, it's a great moment for, we have historic data that tells us that if we re-engage you, then chances are the retention curve is better. So that would be an example of campaign. Yeah, I don't know if I can give more than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When delivering mobile push notifications through Pinpoint, is there any retry mechanism built into the service? Because I know when using SNS, for example, if you message KPNS or PCM, it's kind of like fast effort. So for example, when the message fails, you can
Sure.
logs and top logs to determine that retry or backend. But I was kind of curious if Pinpoint kind of
Yeah, it's a good question. Today, there's no retry mechanism. We're looking at how we can do retry in a smart way so that in the future, the right messages can be retried and the ones that you don't care about can be thrown away appropriately. So to answer your question, no, not today, but it's something that we're looking at. In the back? Yep. Yep, absolutely. So in the console experience, actually, I think one of the slides, there's the media URL. See if I can get there for you. Not sure if it's going to surface. Yeah, so it looks like it's not here on the slide, but below the action is where you can provide a link to a public image that will create a rich push notification.
Yeah, I think you can do multiple icons. There's like a large image, and you can also specify like a smaller icon and a large icon. And then I think you also have emoji support, if that's something that you are interested in.
Which is apparently super effective.
Right.
It's something we're evaluating, the messaging capability, yeah.
Yeah, it's technically, you could do it through silent notifications. That's something we didn't really get into, but if you actually look on this slide, if you go to silent, you can actually just send like essentially what's a raw payload, and then on the client, you can parse that however you want.
Right. So Amazon Music actually leverages that capability as well for some of the engagement things that we do. But yeah, it's definitely something that we would love to see Pinpoint do more.
Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today.